Good morning. My name is Michelle Hilla, and I'm the founder of Slingshot Designs. Today, I want to start by telling a little bit about my story that I think is going to be really helpful for people right now. I am coming to you guys today pretty much with nothing, like with no pretense, right? No makeup, but like just kind of me talking to you the way I would talk to my kids or the way I would talk to anybody else. And the reason I'm doing that is because I think that my story is this is the time to really learn from kind of the mistakes in my past, or I don't even want to say mistakes. I believe that everything does legitimately happen for a reason. And my journey, I think, can offer a lot of insight to people right now who are finding themselves in much the same position that I found myself in about a year and a half ago. And it matters right now because if I can find the courage to share my lessons out loud, then I think that they stand to save a lot of people a lot of unnecessary trauma and struggle, right? And that's really the point of what I do. So I am the founder of a company called Slingshot Designs. It's a transformational coaching company. It's really coaching, business coaching as well as individual coaching. And the reason that I do that is because I have a lot of lessons that I've learned in my life that I want to pay forward. And Slingshot gives me the place, the platform to be able to do that. And it really I was founded by it was a labor of great intensity for me. I had to really go through my life and do all of the things I talk about in these videos and really learn what mattered, what I was made of, who I am, do the inventory on my skills and my interests and my talents and my passions, and make sense out of this 42-year story that has me as the main character. And how did I play into that and really understand how the other people in my life for the last 42 years played into that as well. um, and in doing that, I was able to really get in touch with my own authenticity, who I truly am at the core. Was not a pretty process. Fortunately for me, my background really led me up to the point of being able to do this. So I quite literally specialized in complex problem solving and cross-functional team development. Um, some of the other stuff I specialized in was like culture by design and not default, right? Business systems, business operations. So I literally had my hands in like every pot of a company, and yet I couldn't figure out how to get my own personal brand, my own personal life running as smoothly as I could get in a company to run. So I had to ask the question, why? And to be fair, I started my life off asking the question why at a really young age, so it was kind of natural for me to do anyway. Um, and so a year and a half ago, I decided, or I realized that there was more to my journey than where I was at, right? And I knew that I needed to go and try something else. The one thing I hadn't done was sales, so I left my career and for a sales career. And as no sooner did I take a step off of no sooner did I walk the plank that I found myself, out to sea by myself. And there was really nothing at the bottom. I kind of expected this one life, and it fell through immediately, like absolutely immediately. So I spent the next many months trying to figure out what to do about all that. And I tried a plan B, a plan C, plan D, and they all fell through. And at some point in true desperation and like at my rock bottom, I had to really look at things and say, why? Why do they keep falling through? Like, what do I have left for resources? Like, or relationships or anything? Like, what do I have that's a healthy example that I can replicate? And um, and I have to be honest, there wasn't a lot that I could really look at and pinpoint and say that's positive And that's what I want the rest of my life to be painted in more of that color. It really came down to the love of my children. And that was the biggest resource that I had, an abundance of, right? So I started to paint the canvas with that color. And then it was all kind of one color and it was all in love, and love doesn't, there's limitations to using love as a resource. Love doesn't pay the bills. So how do you monetize that? And, you know, like it was just a very big growing process, but it started with doing the inventory in my life. This is the same as any event that I would do professionally that says, like, you know, if you want to, 5S in lean manufacturing is like sort, straighten, sweep, standardize, and sustain, right? So let's start there and sort out all these different compartments of my life. What do they look like? What has value? What can I use to help build the new life that I'm looking for? What do I want to take with me on this new journey, and what do I want to leave behind? And I really had to deal with that, all of it. And that was a lot. But I did it. And it was slow. It wasn't like, I think I walked into that year thinking that the world owed me something. Like I took this leap and it didn't work out, and I did everything I should have done, but it still didn't work out. And it was kind of like, you know, Uncle, Mercy, somebody just throw me, you know, all these like boats would pass by, using this kind of out to sea analogy. All these boats would pass by and they'd have like, you know, I guess if we kind of stick with that analogy, I'd see these like families and groups and teams of people celebrating and enjoying their time on their yachts and, you know, tossing around life preservers for fun. And they'd walk by, or they'd float by and see me like dinking around in the ocean and never stop to throw me a net or throw me a line or throw me a saver. And I think that wore me down to the point where I started to really question my faith in humanity. And there's a big difference between then and now, just in time frame. I was going through all of that alone. Nobody else was there. And when I say nobody else, I mean like the rest of the world wasn't grieving at the same time. It was my grief, my life, that had really kind of taken me to that point. And here's the reason I'm sharing it now. Because I didn't expect to find myself there. I am an incredibly strong person. For anyone who knows me knows that. I've been through a lot in my life, and I've come out of all of it a kinder, gentler, softer, yet a force to be reckoned with, right? When I am on my game, I am unbeatable. And I know that about myself. I know that I am incredibly strategic. I am incredibly brilliant, like intelligent, great memory. But I know what my assets are. And I know that when I'm feeling grief and stress and pressure, that I know what I default to, my like negative behaviors that are going to stop me from succeeding. And it you don't know that. I think some of that is instinctual, but you really don't know that until you do the work to learn that about yourself. And when I learned all of that, I kind of wrote it down. The first iteration of that looked like everybody else's beliefs of me, right? And as it changed over time in narrative and practice, I started to realize that by removing the labels, by removing the expectations that were man-made and not God-made, by removing the pretense and the preconceived notions and just really the labels, the judgments that have been passed and cast on me by myself or by others, by removing all of that and stripping down to the core of who I am, which is somebody who has no problem being on camera, you know, with no makeup, and I haven't done my hair yet, right? This is just the opportunity that I have right now where I have something to say, so I'm going to turn a camera on and say it. And I will post this and let this go public because it's a message that needs to be heard, and who gives a crap what the packaging looks like. And that's what I really want to encourage other people to get to, is that if your content matters, if you're if your self is together enough, it doesn't matter what the packaging looks like. People, I mean, there's value to that. And I do know that I resonate with a lot of people, and I love that because I spent a lot of years trying to find a message that is relevant, and I kept trying to create a message that was relevant rather than go inside and find my purpose and my mission and my point of why do I want to share? What do I want to share? And learning that is really what kind of was the difference. That's authenticity, originality, and purpose kind of all into one. To be fair, this did not happen overnight. This took a lot of time and a lot of practice. For me, it took a good year and a half of really capitalizing and practicing the tools that I had already learned over the years. For somebody else, I would like to believe that it wouldn't take anywhere near as long, because what the void that I fill in Slingshot Designs is the void that was missing from my life. I aim to be a boat full of life jackets, and all I do is toss them out and rescue people and kind of bring them to shore, right? And help as a trail angel kind of approach, just help people get to where they need to go. And that really fits in line with who I am in my journey throughout life and what I believe I was put on this planet to do. So if you're watching this, I'm speaking to you right now, I guess, just trying to appeal to you as a human to human, with everything that is happening in the world right now. How do you feel? How are you handling it? And are you thinking about rebuilding yet? Because on the other side of all of this is still a world that moves on. And I think now is the time to start considering, especially if you've just lost your job, especially if you're not sure how you're going to balance the expectations of the new world with the responsibilities of your life. If you don't know how you're going to fit all of those together, I can relate to that. And I spent a lot of time really deconstructing so I could rebuild. One thing that I do a lot of is crochet. I crochet a ton. I'm a very artistic person. And one of my favorite things to do is untangle a huge skein of yarn. Like if it's all tangled up or if it's a halfway done project that didn't go anywhere, I like to deconstruct it and reconstruct it. It's very cathartic for me, and then I'll kind of go through and remember that we are all done the same way. If there's a missed stitch early on in our tapestry, we're going to see it later on in life. And there is no reason not to go back and kind of amend our stories to fit what we need it to look like going forward. It's a utilitarian approach to this, to life. And being able to see where we have holes in our tapestry, and we can go back and mend some of those, or amend them, repair them if they need be, or if we have to completely deconstruct and reconstruct, doing that as well. I had always taken a traditional approach to employment. It's just the way that it's just the way that my journey led me. And I did very, very well. I was extremely successful until it didn't work for me anymore. And when I was really forced to choose between work and family, I would always try to choose what paid the bills, but that wasn't the choice my heart was making. So my heart was no longer in my work. And if I couldn't make sure that my family was taken care of, my priorities are very clear: God, family, work. If I couldn't make sure that my family was taken care of, everything suffered because my priorities were out of whack. So ultimately, a year and a half ago, I had to leave, and I resigned and to redesign my life. And when all of it fell through, I didn't change my priorities. I kept them: God, family, work. And when family took up more of my time, or I didn't have a relationship with God that I needed, then I didn't have the time to really focus on the work part of things. But once I did that, I kind of had that resolution, and I was able to focus on the work. then I was able to design a life that worked with my priority structure, right? God, family, work. So what that looks like for me now, a year and a half later, what that looks for me now, I have now found a tribe of people who think like me, who challenge me, who I lead, who they lead, right? I've found a team of people, a tribe of people where I fit. I don't fit in, like I'm not like everybody else, but it's a tribe of leaders and followers that just kind of respect each other and really work well together. Now, I made my own tribe. It didn't exist. I went out and found people and recruited them to be a part of my sphere, right? And you know, with I want to be a part of yours too, right? So we just kind of work on building each other up. I created my own support system. In order to do that, I had to support them too, right? So it's a give to get mentality. Um, and so that's massive. That's something I did not have a year ago. Didn't even have it 6 months ago. So I guess I did, but it didn't happen overnight is my point. And it took a lot of work to make that happen. And this is, Stephen Covey calls it an emotional bank account, right? Just because I have a lot of money in the bank today does not mean the emotional bank account analogy is what I'm talking about here. Doesn't mean it'll be there tomorrow. You have to nurture that. It's debits and credits. You have to look at it like, what have I done to improve this person's life this week or this month, right? It's there's some numbers that really were helpful here. One statistic is 154. That's the average number of relationships that has been shown that you can have and that you can maintain on a regular basis. It's 154 or 158. We'll go with 156 because it's right in the middle. Say 156 relationships that you can maintain authentically on a regular basis. So I kind of started there and said, who are my 156 people, right? I wrote down probably about 200 people and made my goal a little higher because that's typical Michelle fashion. But I set objectives and targets for doing all of this. And then I did it, right? And then I have to sustain that and keep on forging new relationships and strengthening older relationships. And then they start to stagger a little bit to where and then I started connecting those groups. That's how I went about doing it. That does not mean that that's for everybody. The reason I'm sharing this now, I think who I'm really talking to is the people who have been employed up until now, have lost employment, and are now sitting here going, the world that I just left is probably not going to exist in the future again. If you find yourself right now sitting there thinking, I'm too advanced in my career, let's talk no BS for a second. I'm 42 years old. When I left my job a year and a half ago, I was 40 and a half. I did not think, knowing me, my experience, my credentials, my relationships, my network, that I would have any problem finding a job. To be very clear about this, if you are over 40, your experience, depending on where you're at, if you've been at one company for 20 years, great, props to you. That was not my situation. And so unless if you're over 40, you're going to have a problem with ATS, which is automatic tracking system, which is how most companies, it's a system that they use to hire. So it is very difficult to go onto Indeed or LinkedIn if you're over 40 and get a job, especially if you're a female. So that's facts, that's statistics, that is not my opinion. And I've definitely lived this. So it's a lot more true than even I thought it would be. And I was sitting there with this huge ego, like, do you know my background? Of course they're going to want to hire me. It did not work that way. And I think I needed to be humbled a bit there. And I still struggle with that because I look at this and go, I'm 42, man, I am at my prime. I am in the best leadership capacity I've ever been in. I am unlocked, unleashed, and ready to go. And I couldn't believe that there wasn't a yellow brick road for me. And there wasn't. So it was a very humiliating experience for me. So that's one of them. Another one is that the industry's changed. All industries have changed. They had already changed and they're going to continue to change, right? So you cannot be an expert in a field that doesn't exist anymore. As an expert in the quality management field, 24 years I spent in quality, um, quality in operations, but always I think the most consistent for me was quality. It started back in like, oh man, I won't even go there, but it's been well over 20 years that I've been in quality. So quality has changed so dramatically that going into it now, I think right now, if you were to search quality management jobs, an awful lot of them are in medical industry. They're no longer in manufacturing as much. There is still significantly, an industry in quality in manufacturing. But one of the other things that you're going to find is your job skills and credentials are obsolete at this point. If you've been doing the job for a while, if you've been in the industry for a while, your credentials, unless you've worked with somebody who's kept your credentials up to date, then your credentials are obsolete. And that part is a harsh reality to face as well. There are things you can do to create new job skills right now. There's a lot of different programs that are being offered right now that'll put you in a much better position than I was a year and a half ago. But you need coaching and guidance if you have to make these changes. So please reach out to me or to somebody else. It doesn't matter, but the faster you reach out to someone else and get someone else helping you navigate this terrain, the faster you will get to the other side. So I wish I would have realized this sooner in my life. However, I didn't. And fortunately, what that did was prepare me to be able to help others through that journey. I've always been a trailblazer. This is no different. It was just a much bigger trail to blaze. So the other thing that I think is different this time is with 26 million Americans losing their jobs. I'm not from here, so I didn't have a community already, right? I had just moved here. I didn't know anyone, which was a huge problem. Now, even if you are from where you are, if you've been locked up in an office for the last 15 years, or the last year even, when you walk out of that office and open the doors to the world, you're going to realize things are a lot different. And that is a scary place to be, because now all of a sudden I started feeling very obsolete, even though I'm an innovator. And that was very tough for me. Like, how am I young and old? How am I obsolete and relevant? How am I an innovator and a collaborator, yet alone and isolated and repeating the same stuff? Those conflicts started to pop up, and they were not easy for me to figure out on my own. And I was really surprised at how few resources were out there to be able to help somebody in my position. So that is why I started Slingshot Designs, was to help other people kind of navigate change, navigate adversity, and rewrite the narrative of their lives, design their futures. This is the perfect time to know someone like me. So I guess I'll start there. It's 24 minutes introduction to who I am, why I'm here, and what I have to offer, and just a whole lot of advice from my experience, having gone through what a lot of people are going to be facing or are facing right now. I went through it a year and a half ago, and I can help you get through it too, if that's what you want right now, right? So reach out. Just know you're not alone in this. I think that the feelings of loneliness and isolation and nobody else understanding where I was at, and that was the hardest thing for me to deal with in my life ever, has been feeling like nobody else gets it. That's not, I am somebody who gets it. So if that's helpful for you, please reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out. You're not going to be met with a sales pitch. You're not going to be met with, you're going to be met with open arms and what can I do to help? And we'll kind of look at the rest of it going forward and figure out what works, right? A lot of times I can help. All right. So reach out. In the meantime, take care of yourself and others, and stay tuned because there will be more to come. I am just getting practiced in being able to share my story. It's not the easiest thing for me to do, but as I say to any client I've ever had and pretty much anyone I've ever led, um, you must be willing to do things you've never done before in order to get places you've never been. And you need to be willing to do that every single day, especially right now. So please step outside of your comfort zone because there is a world out there of opportunity on the other side of all of this, and even right now. All right. So take care of yourself and your neighbors. Stay happy, stay healthy, and 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 stay safe, you guys. All right. Thank you.